So, welcome back to part 2 of my Japanese Susan K special. I'm the Phantom Reviewer.
And I'm Catelyn, and we're having a Susan K slumber party! Woohoo! I know. Let's do some cosplay first. You be Eric, obviously, and I'll be Christine, and we can do that final scene where...
How about you be Luciana?
Oh!
And I'll be Eric, pushing you off the balcony. Or how about you be Sasha the dog, and I'll be the townspeople who kicked the dog to death for yapping all the way through the movie.
Oh, you. You are a meanie head. And meanie heads don't get any popcorn.
Okay, I'm sorry. I do appreciate having you here, actually, since you've watched this play a gajillion times already, so maybe you are the best person to help me make sense of it all. I've already checked out Studio Life's Phantom: The Untold Story, Part 1. Watch my last review if you missed it. So now we're looking at the sequel, Phantom: Kiss of Christine.
Woohoo!
Yes, woo-woo indeed. And we'll be looking at the Espoir cast, which has the actor from the Sword cast, Yoshiki Yamamoto, reprising his role as Eric, and Yosuke Hayashi, who played adult Eric in the Destined cast, playing young Eric in a flashback scene. And in the second version, the Avenir cast, Eric is played by Hiru Kashara. Got all that? No? Neither the hell have I. Doesn't matter. Let's get on with the review. We get a basic recap of the last play where Eric is tormented by voices from his past.
そんなに見たいんなら見るがいい!
And that was pretty damn cool, whatever that was. Anyway, we start off already in Persia. We lose a lot of the scenes from the book where Nadir the Persian picks Eric up from the sideshow and subsequent trip to Persia, and yeah, although there was some interesting stuff in here, that's fine. I understand they have to cut some stuff out. It's still 3 hours as it is. Anyway, we begin in Persia with Nadir the Persian and his son, and this pretty awesome looking mannequin that Eric made, which it looks disturbingly like his own mother, which isn't surprising really because it's played by the same actor, whatever. God, I love that golden mask, although I think it's a slightly weird stylistic choice that Eric is wearing his very European looking cloak and hat, which doesn't seem practical for the heat of Persia.
Eric's clothing in Persia is actually pretty close to the way that Kay described it in her novel, in that he's dressed all in black. The main difference is that in Kay's novel he had a voluminous black magician's robe with long sleeves and hidden pockets that he used for concealing supplies for his magic tricks, his Punjab lasso, the Shah's cat, and probably loads of other stuff that he stole from the palace. Instead, at the beginning of the play, he has his traditional black opera cloak, which doesn't appear until later in the novel.
Anyway, Eric meets the Shah of Persia and his invisible cat. Yeah, there's an invisible cat in this one, don't ask. Eric has a nasty temper in this one, and the relationship with the Persian is very on and off.
I think that the chilly dynamic between Eric and Nadir at the beginning of the play comes from the fact that it starts after Eric and Nadir's trip from Russia to Persia, so their friendship doesn't really form until later in the production. In the novel, by the time that Eric and Nadir arrive at Nadir's home, they're both rather chummy, or at least as chummy as Eric gets with anyone. By the end of the play's Persia section, Eric and Nadir have formed a wary friendship, but it doesn't really have the depth and nuance that it does in the novel. This is one of my relatively few gripes about the production, in that they cut so much from the Persia section that it sometimes doesn't feel coherent.
Next up, we have a lengthy Harem Dance interlude, because this is a Japanese play and we need more dancing. Show me what you got. Shake that booty. Oh, wait. I was enjoying this until I remembered that they're all dudes. Begone, foul temptresses! I like chicks! I like chicks! Think of boobies. Oh, that's the stuff. You now meet the Khanum of Persia, or the Little Sultana. She has the deepest voice for a chick I have heard yet.
まさかそなた、わらわに手品を見せるためだけに、はるばるロシアから参ったのではあるまい?
The relationship between the two of them reminds me a lot like the Duchess Josiana in The Man Who Laughs. She seems to like her men as ugly as a zombie cow's udder, and she gives him power in her kingdom as well. She demands that he creates amusing deaths for her entertainment. And so he does.
あの苦しみを楽しめるもの。拷問部屋。鏡の部屋。
We get this really cool-ass scene of him visualizing his concept for a torture chamber with mirrors. Really very effective.
Yes, this scene where Eric flails at the reflections of himself is him dreaming up the idea of the torture chamber. Basically, he conceives of a way for mirrors to be as horrific to other people as they are to him.
Eric is rewarded for his general awesomeness with the gift of a Harem Virgin. But since Eric is understandably against the idea of slavery, since he spent a good amount of his life in a cage, he sends the gift back, which results in the girl's death. In the book, she's actually put into the mirrored torture chamber, but here she's murdered by cards.
In the play, the Harem Girl scene comes after Eric's invention of the torture chamber, which I interpret to mean that the torture chamber has been used successfully, and she is Eric's reward for a job well done. In the novel, the Harem Girl scene comes much later, after Eric is already starting to fall out of favor, and the Harem Girl is meant to be a way to torture Eric since the Khanum is fairly certain that he will refuse this gift. This rather changes the dynamic between Eric and the Khanum, since in the play, the Khanum doesn't deliberately use Eric's weapons against him, like she does in the book.
You have to forgive me, I'm really brushing over a lot of the subplots with Eric's rivals and all the Persian politics here because they aren't really of much interest, and it seems like a great deal of all the court intrigue from the book has been condensed or removed entirely, for the sake of running time.
Eric's machinations in the Persian court have indeed been removed, except for some of his interactions with the Khanum, the Shah, and the Grand Vizier. So we never see him becoming the Khanum's personal angel of doom and executioner. We don't really see him orchestrate the Grand Vizier's murder, and we don't see his magic show for the new Grand Vizier. This is another part that I was sad to see go, but I understand that they were pressed for time.
A key scene that they did keep, though, was when the Persian son is dying of something. It's not very clear in this version since he just seems to have a bad cough.
In the play, Riza has an illness that is less severe than in the book. In the book, Riza becomes paralyzed and goes blind. I thought that Riza's euthanasia was handled well in the play, but it seemed to be more abrupt than in the book. Then again, there may have been exposition regarding Riza's illness that I didn't understand since I don't speak Japanese. This is one scene that I prefer in the Avenir cast with Hiro Kasahara, since I think that Kasahara does a better job of capturing Eric's sadness at ending Riza's life.
Once the Shah's palace is complete, Eric is of no more use, and Nadir is ordered to execute him. But Nadir lets Eric escape, and the two men part on good terms. And we're on to the next phase in Eric's life, his return to Paris. Eric goes to his old house and finds his mother recently deceased, and we get some more flashbacks of the first show. This happens a lot in these plays, Catelyn. Can you explain what's with these little memory zones, or whatever they are?
These memory areas of the stage are Studio Life's way of showing flashbacks. They help make the distinction between when a character is really there and when they're just part of another character's recollection. This is one of the ways that Nick Simmons' lighting design is used to really awesome effect, since when the actors appear in flashback, they stand behind the upstage scrim, and so they're able to quickly appear and disappear with the use of lighting.
So Eric enters an opera house designing competition. Yeah, apparently that's the thing, a sort of the architect's factor. Then we get some scenes where he meets Charles Garnier, he designs the opera house, and then there's wars and Prussians and Russians and yada yada yada. Yeah, this part never really interested me much, although we do get a pretty cool scene where a revolutionary guy turns up to blow up the opera house, and we're treated to a pretty neat Punjab lasso kill, which I imagine is pretty difficult to do live on stage every night without screwing it up, so props for that. I can't help but think that people would have a lot less trouble with the ending of Love Never Dies if a similar thing happened when Meg threatened the Phantom with a gun.
Always wondered how to make you watch well.
Much more satisfying ending. The important thing is now Eric has his lair underneath the catacombs of the opera house, and the fun can really start. We have our usual characters. The managers once again seem to be relegated to comic relief. They just overact and scream a lot, but I did enjoy the scenes where Eric is screwing with them by means of these creepy reflections. Not Joseph Bouquet? Interesting. Seems to be a murder here, as opposed to the accident in the Susan Kay novel. So finally, we're almost an hour and a half into The Kiss of Christine, when we finally meet Christine. Now, although some of the guys in this could pass for women, this Christine is really fooling nobody. Eric overhears a conversation between her and Meg. And it's interesting that he doesn't actually hear her sing, which is what happens in the book. So in this one, it's not like that he falls in love with her voice. Evidently it's just like a love at first sight thing, which I think robs the story of something.
Christine's lack of singing in the second play was one of the few aspects that I didn't like about this production. I understand that for obvious reasons it wouldn't have worked to have the actor playing Christine actually sing, but they still could have used lip syncing and some clever staging to make it look like Christine was singing. I thought that this was a missed opportunity, and it meant that in the scene where Eric first sees Christine, he didn't have as much reason for falling in love with her. As you say, it seems to be more of a love at first sight thing than him falling in love with her because of her voice. That said, I definitely commend Studio Life for not including the whole Eric falls in love with Christine because she looks like his mother subplot. I thought that this was probably the weakest and most bizarre plot twist that Kay came up with in her novel, and I was glad to see it go.
Nadir the Persian reappears in Act 2 to bug Eric about the way he's living his life, including his drug addiction, which is prevalent in the Persian sections of the book, but not shown until this point, so that kind of comes out of nowhere. Talking of coming out of nowhere, here's one of my favourite Phantom characters, Carlotta! Yay!
Christine!
Here she's an overacting red monster of a woman, and in this one we're treated to an awesome version of the scene that doesn't make it into many versions, where Eric throws his voice to make Carlotta sing like a toad. Sounds more like Peter Griffin, but never mind. Of course, Raoul is in here, but in this one he comes across as a bit bland. Considering he's the main protagonist of the LaRue novel, it would be nice to see a strong-willed and likeable Raoul once in a while, instead of the non-character that he is in almost every version. The descent to the lair is handled very well, this time showing it from the other side of the mirror, rather than in the dressing room, which was a neat touch, as with the digital projections and gondola scene.
Interestingly, the set was designed by the guy who did the Phantom 25th Anniversary concert, and the lighting was designed by the guy who did Love Never Dies in London, which explains why they are so well done. And holy cats! Will you look at the size of that organ? I'm impressed, Eric. And bonus points for having a coffin bed. I think that's the only version apart from the Chaney movie to feature one.
The unmasking scene comes abruptly, and I don't think it was as effective as the other unmaskings I've seen. Disappointingly, there's no mass ball sequence, just an ordinary party where Eric spies on Christine and Raoul. Waltzes make my heart hurt. Raoul's a bit of a drunken playboy in this, rather like his character in the Dario Argento version. We have this little scene where the Phantom and Christine go out for a walk, and Christine is mistaken for a prostitute by Raoul and his frat boy buddies. I thought the Phantom was about to unleash some wampas on them like the Robert Englund version, but sadly it was not to be.
I think that the scene makes more sense in the novel, since Eric and Christine are traveling by carriage, and so they never get close to Raoul's friends. In the play, since everyone's traveling by foot, Raoul's buddies are able to surround Christine. This makes for a rather odd dynamic in terms of Eric's placement on the stage. I guess the director didn't want Eric to let loose on these guys, because if he had, he probably would have killed them all, which would have rather changed the plot, though it would have been freaking awesome. I would have loved to have seen more scenes of Eric punjabbing people. But to have Eric sort of hide himself upstage like that and let Christine be harassed by these guys, that just didn't work.
After that nasty incident, Christine plays dress up for Eric by wearing his wedding dress, but the sight of it sends him crazy with desire, and she's banished to her room. He plays with his organ for a bit and... Christine! Get your hands out your knickers! Christine! Get your hands out your pants! You're as bad as Eric's mother. Everyone's at it in this play. Anyway, we get the Apollo's Lyre scene, of course, with some particularly kick-ass music at the start. I don't know what to sing here, but I assume it's something like, I don't like Raoul very much. Yeah, ha, 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 ha. If you say so, mate. And down comes the chandelier. Boom! Yoink! And so we come to the final lair sequence. Raoul and the Persian fall into the torture chamber and are slowly roasted alive. The scene is well done, rather like The Prisoners, and the acting is intense. I just wish I knew what the hell anyone was saying. The moment where we get the titular kiss of Christine is really touching and emotional, and only slightly spoiled by the fact that it's two dudes! that's the end. Shame about how Raoul was burnt to death in that torture chamber. Oh no, there he is. Oh yeah, I forgot. The K-book has a pointless epilogue from Raoul's point of view. This is where the novel got really fanficky for me, because rather than ending it on the poignancy of that brief kiss, which was all he ever really wanted in life, it turns out that Eric gets a piece of that smoking hot Christine ass before his death. Hey Christine, did you do it in that big dress? You dirty hoe. So, as in Love Never Dies, that one brief bonk is enough to get you instantly pregnant, and Christine gives birth to a son called Charles, who just happens to be a musical genius. So, Eric's genius never truly died, but he's passed on to the next generation, and circle of life, and yada 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 yada. And so that was a really long-ass play. I am totally exhausted. Catelyn, what did you think of these two plays?
My closing thoughts are, first and foremost, as a huge fan of Susan Kay's novel, I love the fact that Studio Life decided to come back a year after they did The Untold Story and finish this massive Susan Kay love fest. I love the fact that they brought in the big guns of Kinley and Simmons to do sets and lighting and decided to treat these productions so seriously. Really, only the Japanese would have the tenacity and obsessiveness to create 2 6-hour, double-cast, mostly faithful theatrical adaptations of a piece of phantom fan fiction published over 20 years ago. Also, I absolutely adore Yoshiki Yamamoto's performance. I thought that he created a very distinct portrayal of Eric and really embodied the character. I've never seen another stage actor so convincingly play the same character from childhood through middle age, which is even more impressive given the fact that Yamamoto was about 40 when he did these plays. So, Yoshiki Yamamoto, wherever you are and however you say your name, because I'm sure I'm butchering it, my hat is off to you, sir.
I must admit, I enjoyed the first part way more than the second. Maybe because there's never really been a version that addresses Eric's early life in detail. So it was fun to see an adaptation of that, but once it gets to the opera house, it's just retelling the same old story, and often with random or pointless plot changes that left me scratching my head, rather like the Susan Kay novel did. However, this is a thorough retelling, respectful to the source material, well acted, well directed, the lighting, staging and music is excellent, and giving us 2 versions of each play in the box set is generous, bordering on excessive. The main thing that stops me enjoying this is that I can't speak Japanese, but that's not a valid criticism of the play, although it would have been nice to at least have subtitles on the DVD, so watching it wasn't such a mystery tour through its frequent and lengthy dialogue scenes. If you love the Kay novel, then you'll find much to enjoy here, but being Japanese would certainly help a whole bunch.
Well, thank you for watching with me. This was a lot of fun. Oh, shall we watch it again? This was my 74th time, but only your first, so you've got a lot of catching up to do.
No, dear, let's not. I really should be getting along. I'm actually making my way across state to Canada on the trail of a new Phantom movie that's being made by this actor-director guy, Anthony P. Mann. I'm going to hold him hostage and, I'm going to try and interview him and find out if this movie's going to suck or kick ass. Could go either way. Wish me luck, and I'll see you all next time.
Bye!
Ah!